So, how do we practice this bhavana of seeing the whole world as the Lord? Now, for that, we again say that since we have seen that the whole creation has come out of Pujyam, zero, and then what we see is infinite variety, plurality, names and forms of so many objects, and the infinity is represented by this shape in mathematics, the infinity. So, you see that this world of names and forms, plurality, is represented by the letter infinity. This is infinity in mathematics. So, when you integrate in the integral calculus, you see that the limits of integration from 0 to infinity you integrate. So, what we are advised is to have the integral vision. So, you see this infinite variety of names and forms of the world that we encounter every day in our waking state. This is nothing but the Purna Vastu, zero. Therefore, you see that in this simple example, zero is, when you strangulate it, it becomes infinity. Has anything been added to this infinity? It is only the zero which has been strangulated to give this infinity shape. So, this infinite world of names and forms has emerged from only this plenum, fullness, Purnam. So, this is our vision where we see the world of names and forms which are infinite in number. Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, gives this example. Reduce this infinity. First, he gives a two-step process. He says, first reduce this infinity into 8. The digit 8. So, 8 when knocked flat becomes infinity, and when infinity is raised, it becomes 8. So, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that this entire creation is made of his apara prakriti, which is eightfold. Bhumi, Rapo, Anulo, Vayuhu, Kam, Mano, Buddhi, Revacha, Ahankaram, Itiyam me Binna Prakriti Ashtada. He says his nature is composed of the inferior Prakriti called Apara Prakriti and the superior Prakriti called Para Prakriti. The inferior Prakriti, Apara Prakriti alone has manifested as this creation in the eightfold form. And the Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that see, this creation is nothing but an eightfold form of namely the 5 great elements: Bhumihi, earth; Apaha, water; Analaha, fire; Vayuhu, air; Kam, space. And then for the Jiva who inhabits this earth, it is Mano, Buddhi, Evacha, mind, intellect, and Ahankaram, the egoic form, that I, the sense of I. For the Vyashti, individuality, it is mind, intellect, and ego. But for the Samashti, for the totality, it is Manam represents the cosmic ego, and then Buddhi represents the Mahat Tattvam, the cosmic intellect, and Avyaktam, Ahankara, again finally becomes the Avyakta state. So, this macrocosmic world also is reduced into just eightfold form, and therefore this eightfold form is the Apara Prakriti, or the lower nature of the Lord, and this has come from the Lord himself. It has issued from the Lord himself, and therefore it is not separate from the Lord at all. And then in the very next verse he says, Apareyam itaswanyam Vidhi Prakriti me param. Apart from this inferior Prakriti, lower Prakriti of mind, know that higher nature of mind, which is Para Prakriti. Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Daryate Jagat. I exist in the form of the Jivas, whose main essence is the consciousness principle by which I sustain this entire creation. Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Daryate Jagat. This entire creation I sustain by this, my Para Prakriti, whose essence is of the principle of consciousness. Therefore, Lord Krishna gives this two-step process, reduces infinite world of names and forms into eightfold form of the Lord. And this eightfold form is nothing but a strangulated zero. When you understand that this eightfold form has come only from the Lord, then it resolves into the Pujyam, the zero, which is fullness, the Purnam. And therefore, in this two-step process, you see that the whole creation or the world is nothing but the form of God. And with this bhavana, we develop an attitude of devotion, and then we progress in our sadhana, and ultimately we reach the state of realization of the truth, where this is no more a theory or an attitude or a practice, etc., but it becomes a direct fact of life. When you become a jnani, all these things becomes crystal clear, like a gooseberry fruit on the palm of one's own hand. So this is the evolution and the vision of the Vedas in a nutshell. And therefore, all our sadhana must be geared towards taking us towards this goal of seeing everything as the form of God. And that form of God cannot exclude the seer, namely you and I. That is, who sees this world? I. The seer is my little individuality. And if this Purnam encloses everything, it cannot leave me out. I am part of that whole. I am included in that whole. I am included in that Purnam. And therefore, the Guru tells the seeker, Sishya, Tattvamasi, that supreme reality, you are that. You are not separate from that. This is the Mahavakya Upadesham which the Vedas give. And the Sishya can ask, how do you know? Then he says, Aham Brahmasmi. I am also that. Therefore, it is in modern terminology, in modern psychology, they say, I am okay, you are okay. Like in Vedantic terminology, Mahavakyas are nothing but a restatement of I am okay, you are okay. The Guru says, I am okay, Aham Brahmasmi, and you are also okay. So, Tattvamasi. So, this is the ultimate resolution of all human conflicts and suffering, where you see yourself as the whole and you see yourself as Purnam and you lack nothing. And with this introduction about the vision of the Vedas, I wish to also mention a few things. Namely, Vedas are in the Sanatana Dharma tradition considered as the very breath of God. Like a human being is considered to be living only as long as he breathes. In the same way, Vedas are correspondingly to God. That means Vedas are eternal. If God is eternal, Vedas have not been created by God, but they are also eternal. They are part of Him. During Srishti, the Lord breathes, and therefore Vedas have become manifest. They are the sound of creation, and they are available as vibrations in space, which the highly evolved rishis could directly see those mantras and record it for posterity, for the elevation of humanity. Therefore, Vedas are eternal and considered as the breath of God. And during Pralaya, when the whole creation is withdrawn, the Vedas do not become annihilated, but they are become resolved as a part of God. It is like as if the Lord has gone into a yoga nidra, where the breath has been suspended, but it is very much there. For a yogi who can be in samadhi for several hours or several days, the breath becomes superfine, almost not there. In the same way, Vedas are withdrawn into the Lord, and in the next creation, it is again released. Therefore, In Dakshinamurti Stotram, Acharya Shankara says, Bijas Yankara Ankuro Jagadidam Prangnir Vikalpam Punaha. He says this creation is not a one-time creation. It has happened countless number of times, like a tree coming out of a seed and then it is withdrawn in its potential form during the end of creation. This creation also goes through cycles. It is projected from this Purnam and then it is sustained there during the lifetime of that Yuga or Kalpa. And then when it is during dissolution, the whole thing goes back into the Bija Avastha, the seed state, the potential form. And therefore this is a cyclic process and this is not a one-time creation. And this is also supported by very modern physics scientists in the recent decades. Therefore, this is a cyclic process where, and every creation, when it is emerging from the Lord, the Vedas come out as the breath of the Lord for the benefit of the Jivas, and then during dissolution, they are again withdrawn. So this is one thing. And now Vedas, that is why in Brahma Sutras, Vedavyasa Maharshi, who codified the entire Vedas, who was a direct incarnation of Lord Narayana himself. Yeah, no human being could have done what sage Vyasa has done. He codified all the Vedas into four Vedas, namely Rig, Yajur, Samaveda and Atharvana Veda, and also he wrote 18 Mahapuranas, and finally he wrote also Brahma Sutras. And in Brahma Sutras, the very third verse says Shastra Yonitvat, where that sutra means Shastrasya Yonihi Sarveshwaraha. That means the origin of the Vedas is the Lord himself. Yonihi means origin or source. So what is the source of these Vedas? Shastrasya Yonihi, Shastra Yonihi. It is the very Lord himself. Shastra Yonitvat. And then for a person to realize the truth and be freed from this cycle of birth and death, he has to get the knowledge of that self or the Lord. And how does he get this knowledge of the self? And again, it is only through the Shastras. Shastram Yeva Yonihi, for the knowledge of the self. The Shastras alone are the source of knowledge, the knowledge of the self or the Lord, whichever way you call it. And therefore, Shastra Yonitvat means the Lord is the source of all the Vedas, and the Lord can be known only through the Vedas. Therefore, in Sanatana Dharma, these Vedas occupy the highest position, the scriptures. And here we cannot attain that knowledge without having exposure to the Vedas, and this is a fundamental edict in our Sanatana Dharma position. Now, briefly I will tell about the major features which are common to both Indian philosophy as well as Western philosophy, and the differences also later on. In Indian philosophy, all inquiry into truth has three components. Satya Vichara, what is truth? If you embark into the inquiry into truth, first our philosophy says, our Shat Darshana, Yoga, Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaiseshika, Uttara Mimamsa and Purva Mimamsa, the Shat Darshanas, they all say you have, first thing is Pramana Vichara. Pramana Vichara means you must have the grounds of knowledge. What is the means of knowledge by which you can get the knowledge of the Lord? You must have a tool. Pramana means a means of knowledge or a tool or an instrument of knowledge. Pramaya Karanam iti Pramanam. Prama means knowledge. Karanam means instrument. The instrument of knowledge is called pramaya, karanam is called pramanam. So first you must have the tools at your disposal with which you can employ inquiry into the truth. Therefore, this is called as pramana vichara in Indian philosophy. In Western philosophy, this exactly corresponds to epistemology, that is the methods of knowledge or the grounds of knowledge. So you must have a tool with which you employ the tool and get knowledge. To obtain knowledge of forms, the tool is your eyes. And then for extremely small bacteria, etc., you employ a microscope. It is an extension of the eye. If you want to see the stars, you employ the telescope. That is again the extension of the eye. Therefore, eye is the tool for getting knowledge of the forms. Therefore, in the same way, pramana vichara means it is the grounds of knowledge. And this is called as epistemology in Western philosophy. And secondly, then what are you going to inquire into? Then when you look into the object of inquiry, in the Indian system, it is called as prameya vichara. Prameya vichara means inquiry into the object of knowledge. What is it that you want to know? If you want to know God, what is the pramana that you require? So this is called prameya vichara. And this is called in Western philosophy, the exact equivalent is metaphysics. That is inquiry into truth. Truth has a connotation of a lot of abstraction in the Western philosophy. But in Indian philosophy, it is given very, very crystal clear, watertight definitions. So, prameya vichara is metaphysics in corresponding to Western philosophy. And then thirdly, you have phala vichara. Then what is the purpose of having this knowledge? What is the usefulness of this knowledge? Phala vichara is the third component of the Indian philosophy. And this corresponds to values in Western philosophy. In Western philosophy, the fruit of this inquiry is the values that one gets in life, by which you enrich your personality, you enrich your knowledge, you empower yourself to higher levels. There it stops. But in Indian philosophy, you have the phala vichara consists of only moksha purushartha. Because in Indian philosophy, you have these four purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha purusharthas. Artha kama pursuit is common to all living beings. Artha means everybody wants to be prosperous. And kama means fulfilling all your desires. It can be a pleasure pursuit. It can be anything to entertain your mind, to make your mind happy. But in the vision of the Vedas, this artha kama pursuit is not denounced, but it is very much part of the evolution of the human being. But it must be within the parameters given by dharma. So it should be a dharmic pursuit where you fulfill the needs of artha kama. Artha is security, wealth, and the pleasures of life. So these things are definitely enjoined, but by upholding a disciplined, virtuous life, guided by the parameters of dharma. So the first three parameters, dharma, artha, kama, are the purusharthas for all human beings. And for very serious seekers who are not satisfied with this happiness, they want absolute happiness. And for them, it is moksha purushartha. So that is the fourth purushartha, fourth ultimate goal of life. And therefore Vedas actually cater to all these purusharthas. And 98% of the Vedas, it is called Veda Purva, which deals with karma kanda. Karma kanda means you follow a set of rituals, homas, and mantra prayoga, etc., to fulfill all these dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas. Then for a person who has got tremendous dispassion for all worldly achievements, for him the only purushartha is moksha, liberation from this bondage of embodiment in a human body and suffering all its travails. Then for him, for the moksha purushartha, the Vedas have the Veda Anta portion. that is a final portion of the Vedas, which is Jnana Kanda. So about more than 98% of the Vedas belong to the Karma Kanda, which address the first three Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama Purusharthas. And the final portion of the Vedas, the Jnana Kanda, addresses the Moksha Purushartha. And here this comes as the Upanishad portion of the Vedas. And therefore, in our system, Vedas are the ultimate pramanam. Pramanam means the valid means of knowledge, as I mentioned before. And in the Indian system, you have 6 pramanas. And in the 6 pramanas, this Shabda Pramanam or Shruti Pramanam occupies the highest level of knowledge, the means of knowledge. Because the first pramana is Pratyaksha Pramana, which means direct perception with your sense organs, 5 senses, eyes, ears, etc., nose, skin, and the 5 Jnanendriyas. That is a Pratyaksha Pramana, direct perception. And the second Pramana is, based on this Pratyaksha, you can infer. It is called Anumana Pramana, called inference. There is, you see with the help of your senses, the smoke on the hill, and then you infer. You do not directly see the fire, but you infer from the smoke that there is fire in the hill. So this is called Anumana Pramana or inference. And thirdly, you have Upamana Pramana. Upamana means example, because you can have very powerful examples which can reveal knowledge, and therefore the methodology using examples is also considered a very valid pramana. And in Vedanta we use so many examples to get some sort of an intuitive understanding of what is the ultimate truth. Therefore, we have Upamana Pramana, where you use examples. Then fourthly, you have Arthapatti Pramana. Arthapatti Pramana means it is a multi-stepped logic. It is an advanced version of the inference, that is Anumana Pramana, where you presume certain things based on certain observations. If a person goes on fasting for days and days, but he is not losing weight, then you presume that he must be eating at night. This is called presumption. And this sort of a presumption is also a valid means of knowledge to understand what is happening around. And therefore this is called Arthapatti, Artha Apatti. Therefore this is another valid means of knowledge. It is a multi-stepped logic or presumption. So we have Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana Pramana, Arthapatti. Then you have Anupalabdhi Pramana. Anupalabdhi Pramana means absence of a thing also can reveal knowledge.